This chapter talks about the history of classification. So, classification is grouping things based on a set of criteria. And you might wonder why we do such a thing, why we classify things. And we classify things to make it easier to understand and to show relationships. And because some of us just like to organize, and there's no shame in that. So, scientists organize things based on their broadest differences, and then they keep getting more and more specific until you get down to a single species or a single subspecies. So, Aristotle's original method of classification was actually very simple. I kind of like it in some ways. And he was doing this 2,500 years ago. Like, it, shout out to him. This was hard. It was cutting edge at that time. So he broke things into plants and animals. And then from there, he, broke things down further, like what was the size or the structure of the plant or the herb that he was looking at. And then he broke down animals into, does this have red blood or is it bloodless? Like if I go step on an insect and all this interstitial fluid comes out, well, that's not red blood. It looks like pus and guts. So anyways, that's how he further classified that. So then eventually Linnaeus came along, and this was only a few hundred years ago. But Linnaeus, he actually developed the first idea of taxonomy, which is the branch of biology that basically classifies things based on their species and their natural relationships. So if you look at like the natural relationships of like birds, for example, he would maybe have birds of prey and then birds that were wading birds in the water and then perching birds. Okay, like that, those were maybe three categories that he had. The problem with this is that obviously a wading bird, is probably hunting fish or like small bugs or clams or things like that in the water. And this perching bird could also go eat insects and things like that too and be, a predator of sorts. And so because of that, it wasn't the most perfect system, and it needed to be like dialed in a little bit more than just basing it off of behavior and habitat. So then as we moved on, we got the modern classification system, and I don't have a picture of that, so I will just show you these lovely bears here. But in the modern classification system, this was based on morphology, meaning your body shape, but it was also based on inferred or guessed about and definitely based on some scientific backing of evolutionary relationships, and specifically, usually a lot of DNA work. So, how things were actually related or similar or dissimilar, like not similar, based on some DNA. So, if you were to compare Aristotle's system of classification to Linnaeus's and then to the modern version, you would say something like Aristotle's method was just based on plants or animals, and then morphology, like the body size and shape. And Linnaeus, his system was more specific than Aristotle's and was also based on natural relationships. And the modern classification is based on DNA and relationships. So it breaks down classification is broken down like this: the domain, the kingdom, the phylum, the class, order, the family, genus, species. So say the domain was like everything in your house. And then kingdom, it would be like, say you had the kitchen kingdom and the bathroom kingdom and the bedroom kingdom. And then the phylum, say you had just the kitchen and stuff. And then the class was like just the stuff that goes in the refrigerator. And the order was just the vegetables in the refrigerator, and the family was just the green vegetables in the refrigerator, and the genus was uh, just like the ones that are maybe like considered more like herbs or something like cilantro, and then other ones were leafy greens, or I don't know, I can't remember with the breakdown, but maybe broccoli. I can't remember how I broke this down here now. And then the species would be like each one individually. So it would break down smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller till you got to the most specific thing. So basically, I want to show you a classification chart. This is important so that you can break these down. Now, this doesn't list domain. So domain is kind of a newer concept, so you don't always see it. But it does list kingdom, and it lists kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species for the brown bear, house cat, dog, killer whale, and for the wolf. And they're all in the kingdom Animalia. And they're all in the phylum Chordata, meaning they have a spinal cord. And they're all in the class Mammalia, meaning they're mammals. And but in their order, you have carnivora, 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 and then you have cetacea, and then carnivora. So killer whales, they broke off in a special order of cetacea, which basically is the whole set of whales. Like mammals that are whales all go in cetacea. And you might say, but they're carnivores too. But it didn't matter. On this level, they broke off and they put all the whales in their own category. And then from there, they broke them down into like, these are the hunters, these are the ones that are like baleen whales. So this is where they are like first different. And you might have a question that says, on this chart, which one is the most different? If that's the case, you go down the chart and you go, okay, kingdom is all the same, phylum's all the same, class is all the same, order is not, and this one is different. So in this case, it would be killer whale is the one that's different. Now, if you had a question that said, which two are the most the same? Well, then you would keep going down further. Okay, we know we've already knocked out killer whale. They are not the same as, as any of, they're the most different ones. So then we would look at the next one at family level. Well, now we have Ursidae, that's all the bears. Here we have Felidae, that's all the cats. Then we have Canidae, which is like canines, like, pretty much dogs. And then Delphinidae, which is the dolphin family. And then here you have Canidae again. So here in dog and wolf, they're both canines, right? So these two still match. And then dog and wolf still match on canis. And then they only diverge here at the species level. So a dog and a wolf here are the most similar. So in looking at species, we write their genus names we write their names in something called binomial, bi meaning two, binomial nomenclature, okay? So this has the genus name followed by the species name. So on this chart, it would be, the genus name would be Ursus arctos, okay? And for a house cat, it would be Felis catus. And for the dog, it'd be Canis familiaris. And for a killer whale, it'd be Orcinus orca. I'm sorry, I've never said that before. And then wolf would be Canis lupus, okay? So, and you can see that lupus for whale or for wolves, like all through literature, by the way, and that's part of where that came from. So anyways, so here you have Cardinalis cardinalis is the genus and the species. I wish they would have done an animal that didn't have the same genus and species names, but that's what's here. And that actually happens somewhat frequently. So it's something that you see. So there's some rules for writing these names. And the first rule is that the genus name should always be capitalized, just the first letter. And the species name should not be capitalized. The next rule is that it should always be in italics if you're typing. But if you're handwriting it, you just underline it since it's hard to write in italics. And then the last rule is that once you've written out this whole name, instead of writing cardinal, and after you've written out the whole genus and species name, you can start abbreviating it after that in your paragraph or in your writing. So cardinalis cardinalis, you can start abbreviating to C cardinalis. So you can cut off some of the genus name by doing that. And your book says that it can be done, but I want to really emphasize that if you don't start abbreviating after it's written out fully the first time, then people that know how to read science will kind of be a little bit, um, stinky about that. And they're going to think the rest of your work is not very good because you don't even know how to abbreviate the species name after it's been written once. So that's one of those things to just be careful and do it the right way so they don't throw all your good work, out the door just because you made a little mistake like that. So systematics is when we find new species, which is still happening, then you use systematics like similarities to find out what this new thing is related to or what it's the most alike. So while taxonomy is classifying a species, systematics is basically the study of past and present biological diversity, with emphasis on evolutionary history, but basically using that to classify new things.